We did see an RV as well on fire. In fact, you're looking at that, right? All those flames right there used to be what looked like some sort of large RV.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, we always talk about defensible space. You can see why it is so important, because look at this. This property is gone. These poor homeowners are looking at it in disbelief, but you can see all these other homes are just right in the path of any blowing embers. They just go right under those eaves, or they get connected to some sort of brush along the side of these homes. But we have been seeing fires, you know, as we know, fire season is year round, but this is certainly at the beginning phase of this fire. You see so much black smoke being produced because if you look at this from Air 7, you can see there are a lot of properties in the path of this fire.
We're going to get to Eric Sherwin right now from San Bernardino County Fire, who's on the phone with us. And thank you so much, Mr. Sherwin, for joining us. We appreciate your time. Tell us about this fire. We understand there was a fire here not long ago. Mr. Sherwin, are you there? Eric? Okay, we seem to have lost him for temporary. We will try to get him back as soon as we can. But you can see there's a lot of slopey terrain there. Dry brush. It has been extremely hot, as we don't need to tell you that. But we can see that there are hand crews on the ground right there. They requested 10 additional engines, probably more by now, also trying to get some air support in there as well. But look at that house that was once standing there. It looks like quite a large home. And that problem is, it's spreading with those embers and just catching fire on those very dry trees.
Yeah, we do have crews headed to the scene here to give us some perspective from the ground level as we look at images from Air 7. But again, we know it's hot, we know it's dry. We have been talking about the fire conditions, very ripe, challenging for our firefighters. Eric Sherwin, are you on the phone with us from San Bernardino County Fire? Do we have a connection with you now? Oh, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk about it. We were just saying this area is no stranger to fires, and let us know what you're thinking when you're looking at these flames ravaging these properties.
Yes, Little Mountain is not unaccustomed to fire. However, this fire started just after 2:30 this afternoon. It was burning through the dry angled grasses under the influence of both the smoke and some afternoon wind. It made a quick run up to the top of the hill and has been working its way through into the community for about the last hour and a half.
We cut out just a tiny bit. Can you repeat where it started?
We are being told, and our investigators are just getting started on their part of the fire, but over in the 3300 block of Beverly Drive, which would be on the southwest side of the fire as you currently see.
And you said this is an area known as the Little Mountain area, and you were saying earlier this is an area that firefighters know pretty well. There have been fires here before. And to give some people some bearings on this, this is near Blair Park. Would that be correct to say?
So this would be east of Blair Park proper. Blair Park is actually where we've set up a dip site for our helicopters that are assisting us in this fight.
As we're taking a look at our map right now, it's east of the 215 and north of the 210. Can you tell us about any evacuations? Which ones are taking place?
Yes, if you let me look at my map. Right now, we have an evacuation order, which means it's time to go now, for all residents that are on the south side of Ridgeline Drive, all homes down to and including Edge Hill Road, all residents on the north side of West Edge Hill Road. So all the residences between those streets are incorporated within this evacuation order. That extends out to the western side, which is Beverly Drive. The homes on Beverly Drive, which is where this fire was first reported, those homes are included as well. And then the evacuation order extends to the east to Circle Road. And I don't have an exact home count for you, but I can say it involves a few dozen homes within that zone.
And we know an evacuation center has been opened at Marshall Elementary, at 3288 North G Street. Tell us about the personnel on this fire. How many engines are there, and what can you tell us about air support?
Presently, we're looking at 40 engines, 3 hand crews, so just about 200 firefighters. That includes firefighters from San Bernardino County Fire, Riverside City Fire, and Cal Fire, all united in this fight.
Well, that's good that you have mutual aid. Of course, a lot of these, you said this started around 2:30. As we look at these live images right now and we see these homes that are going up in flames, very challenging. Not a lot of time for these residents to be able to get out and evacuate.
You're absolutely right. However, like we said, the residents on Little Mountain are not unaccustomed to fire. We did see people that were already packing up and pulling out of the area as we were coming into the area. So that really allows firefighters to come in and focus on the fire, as opposed to residents that overstay in an evacuation area where our focus has to become life safety as opposed to stopping the fire.
Yeah, that's one of those things that firefighters usually always warn about, because a lot of people want to stay and try to protect their own homes and, wet things down with their own hoses. But then it makes it very hard for the firefighters to really get in and try to do property protection, because they are focusing on life protection as well.
Yes, and these roads that are up on Little Mountain are quite narrow, to the point that if a vehicle is coming down the street, the engine has to back down to the bottom of the hill, allow that vehicle to come out before we proceed up into the area. At the same time, once we're in place, it's very difficult for those residents to then get out.
Right, certainly hinders.
So we ask that, yes, please respect those evacuation orders. Allow us to get in there, do our work, get this fire put to bed so we can get you back to your home safely.
We are looking at some live pictures right now. We saw just a man on his roof, or his sort of a patio area. I don't know what he's doing there on his house, but trying to defend his home. But you talk about the defensible space. So how do you think people are doing as far as following the rules on that?
Defensible space is a guideline, and it's citizens and residents helping us harden their homes against the threat of wildfires. So it really is a symbiotic relationship. When property owners do their best to remove or create that defensible space, and then we can come in and protect those homes as that fire comes up. When we don't have that defensible space, it makes our job that much harder and that much more difficult to try and protect homes from an advancing fire.
And again, we're speaking with Eric Sherwin from the San Bernardino County Fire Department. Also, Eric, we're talking about people trying to get to these evacuation center. Ellen had just said that there is an evacuation center that's at Marshall Elementary. Can people go there with their animals as well? Because I would say that a lot of people try to get out. They grab their dogs, their cats, their reptiles, whatever animal they have, they got to get out that door. And it makes it very challenging if you do have a bunch of pets.
Yes, absolutely. And our pets are our family members, and we do want to bring them along. I don't have information on whether Marshall Elementary is accepting small animals. Again, our goal when we hate to put in an evacuation order and not give people a place to go. So it will take our cooperators with the Red Cross a little while to get set up there and ready to receive guests, but we do want to give them a definite destination where they know there is going to be help and assistance for them once they're there.
Yeah, my heart goes out there to a lot of people. This is happening during work hours as well, so some people couldn't even get there to evacuate, so that is very concerning.
Watching some large homes go up in flames, and despite those roofs that are, pretty fire hardy, those red tile roofs, it's still just going down in flames. And can you talk about? Oh my goodness! Oh, so the ones on the right are the earlier shots, but you can see what's left on the live version on the left-hand side. What are the plans now? Are they going to bring in air support?
We are working, like I said, with our cooperators to establish air support and continue this. Again, it's a combined attack from the ground and the air. Dealing with some of this topography and some of these slopes, it's not as easy to bring in what you traditionally think with our fixed-wing tankers, but that's something that incident commanders they're having those conversations as we speak.
Yeah, I bet it is very challenging because everybody needs these fire support from the air to be at their ready, and they can only be so many places at one time. And what would be the area for the water? Because I do see some swimming pools, and we have seen those fire helicopters kind of use their little snorkel to grab some water from the pools. But is there a water source that's nearby, so when the helicopters or the fixed wings they arrive, that they have a pretty close water supply?
That's a great question. And to that point, like we said earlier, Little Mountain is a community that's not unaccustomed to fire. So firefighters have had the ability to pre-plan our approach to vegetation fires. To that point, over at Blair Park, we've set up a dip site for helicopters, and we've set up a tank over there that's supported by a fire hydrant, and they're dipping there, which creates a closer water source. So we have shorter turn times so that we can get more drops on this fire and do our best to stop the advance.
Such a remarkable job that these firefighters do, and and we keep in mind the heavy gear that they have on, and fighting the fire in this tremendous heat is just incredible to watch. And there you see just some firefighters engulfed in smoke there.
And yes, and when you're not even, we have temperatures right here at the base of the hill that are showing 109 currently. And that's before, like you said, you put on the gear and begin engaging the fire.
Now, is this fire moving uphill from where a lot of those homes that we're seeing? It's hard to tell by the video.
So what we see is we saw a rapid run uphill, and then it's been working its way from west to east into the various canyons. So it'll drop down in the bottom of the canyon and make another push up that hill, and it's been bumping along Little Mountain in such a fashion.
Yeah, you can see the firefighters really trying. You can see the live images on the left-hand side, and they are really putting on water on some of these homes. Obviously, again, Mr. Sherwin, a lot of your firefighters, they're doing what they're doing in preparation to protect these homes, because you can see some smoldering grasses and vegetation kind of creeping up against some houses, but then you can see the fire hoses, which obviously produce a very high volume of water. But the way a firefight happens, you said there's about 200 firefighters on the scene of this fire. They do this very methodically. They try to get the water on these homes to try to just protect it from the fire, or how does that work?
So yes, so we break our fires up into divisions. So, and this is common throughout the fire service, where we will have assets assigned to perimeter control that are focused on stopping the vegetation fire. We will have additional assets that are assigned to structure defense groups, and their sole job is to protect homes within their assigned area. So as we came on here, we had an immediate structure threat with the first arriving engine. So we started reinforcing our initial response with assets whose sole purpose would be assigned structure defense, while concurrently other firefighters are working on the vegetation component of the fire.
So many moving parts, and such an impressive orchestra that you conduct there, because we're watching these firefighters try to do some structure protection there, but those flames are certainly moving uphill toward those homes right there, and you see some residents still in those homes.
And it seems like there's two areas. Maybe you can tell us about this, Mr. Sherwin. There seems to be two areas that firefighters have to focus on, two communities. And they look slightly far away, but you can see when you see the charred hillside that they are connected right there.
Yes, so we do have communities that exist along the ridgeline of Little Mountain, and then we also have neighborhoods that exist within those little canyons. And if you look on a road map, you can kind of see how it's set up. So we do have assets up at the top that are doing both structure defense with additional assets performing that perimeter control. And then we have assets down on the lower streets that their almost sole focus right now is that structure defense.
Can't be everywhere at once. It just looks like there's such a vast territory that they have to get to maneuver. It is good to see. You were talking about the roads, and they're very narrow and kind of windy around this area, but you do at least see that you don't see a lot of cars, people evacuating, so they've already done so. But I can only imagine some of these communities that don't feel like they're in the line of fire. They're watching with their, holding their breath, because you can see that fire, it's just chewing through all that vegetation on the ground. And the vegetation looks like it would be more like defensible space. It looks like dry. It's not super thick brush.
Correct. Like we said, this is a fast-moving ground fire. However, it doesn't take much for it to get up into a home. And then when we do have a structure that starts burning, we have all the components that are coming out of that burning structure that can contribute to the fire spread. So that goes beyond our traditional wildland hose lines that are a lot lighter. They flow less water, but when we get structures involved, it's time to utilize our heavier lines with our heavier water flow. Not only to knock down the structure involved, but to prevent spread to adjacent structures.
We're encouraged to see a CAL FIRE helicopter arrive on scene, hopefully helping out. And did you see, you can see someone trying to hose down their backyard back there as those flames approach the home. Hopefully that's a firefighter, not a resident. Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, and was that a helicopter that was able to do water drops, or are they assessing the area? Did you get a good look at that helicopter?
So, and yes, that is a CAL FIRE. I am just on the west side of where he came in. So they perform a multitude of functions. In addition to bringing in firefighters that they can offload and put them to work, they will perform those water drops. They can give very credible intelligence back to our incident commanders when they have that sky-high view of what the fire is doing and where it's going, time to impact on structures that may be threatened. So we have a multitude of things that are taking place in a single aircraft at any given time.
Wow, so brave, those helicopters.
We are very lucky to have the firefighters that we do here in California. And we're going to, well, let's see here. Eric Sherwin, we want to really appreciate, we want to thank you so much, and we really appreciate the time that you've spent with us to give us some insight into this fire and continue the good work. And we really appreciate the time you spent with us. And we're going to check out the weather, because obviously it's a big deal for the firefighters to be dealing with 109 degrees right there. Danny, what can you tell us about the conditions there?
Yeah, the temperatures have been certainly the hot areas, and certainly in the areas you're showing you under the advisories and heat warning areas. It's right there in that part of the IE in San Bernardino specifically. The temps have been hovering in that 105, 110 range throughout the afternoon. So there's the heat component of this fire concern. Also, the winds, somewhat of a factor. We're seeing some of the gusts in that 15, 20 mile per hour range, so that's not good news. We got that going on. And the humidities are well below the 20s. We're like in the teens, 12, 15% has the humidity, so very, very dry conditions. The other thing to watch for, we kind of saw that on the video, is how those flames move uphill. What tends to happen in a fire, especially along a hillside, is that the flames are heating the ground above it, so it just naturally feeds up towards the hill, because all that ground above it is dry, and it preheats it with the flames, so that naturally that flames just quickly drive up that hill, and that's what you have a real concern right now. So that, just a natural pattern of that fire going uphill quickly. You then kind of fan the flames a bit with the winds in that 15, 20 mile per hour range. And of course, the very, very hot temperatures, 105 to 110. We're seeing the humidities right there in that teen range as well. So yeah, all the things that really make it difficult for those incredible firefighters are in line right now in that area.
Seeing a lot of pink there and a lot of orange, and it's just not a good sight.
Yeah,
excessive heat warnings.
Yeah, these advisories and warnings are all in that 105 to 115 range as far as the temperatures are concerned, and very low humidities on top of that.
Yeah, and still more than 24 hours to go until this advisory ends.
I know, and Danny, we've been talking about it. You guys have been monitoring the excessive heat. We've had such an extremely hot summer so far. We're just into the beginning of August, but again, we were hearing that it was 109 degrees. We know how hard it is for those firefighters. You're looking at video that we have been from Air 7 showing just how destructive this fire is. Again, it's called the Edge Hill Fire, and it is burning in San Bernardino County. We were talking about the evacuation orders that were put in place. Ellen, we said, you know, it might sound a little confusing for some of us who aren't there right now, but we do know that those living on the south side of and south of Ridge Line Drive, all those residents living on the north side and north of Edge Hill Road and west and including Beverly Drive, which is sort of right there, the epicenter. We know it started on the 3300 block of Beverly Drive, this fire around 2:30, and east of Circle Road. You are being told you must evacuate. We know that Marshall Elementary at 3200 North G Street, that's going to be open for evacuated residents. So again, you can go to Marshall Elementary. Many people know this area. Again, we were talking earlier with San Bernardino County Fire. This area is no stranger to fires. They have, they know their evacuation plans. They know when they see smoke and flames, they need to prepare to evacuate. But they certainly did not have a lot of time to evacuate from this fire.
Yeah, right now we have on the phone Brandy Carlos. She's a fire photojournalist. And Brandy, you there?
Yes, hi.
Hi, I understand that you're on the front lines. Can you tell us what does your job entail, and how close do you get to this fire?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, I get pretty close. I have a history and a background, you know, with the fire department. So, you know, I've been trained, and I get right up in, you know, on the lines with these men and women. And right now, it's just, this is a really fast-moving, dangerous fire. A lot of these neighborhoods that run on the foothills of Little Mountain and San Bernardino have the brush is very thin. So when you get a little bit of wind on it, it pushes really, really quickly, very fast. And then a lot of these homes are covered with very large canopies. And I'm sure as you can see from the air and, some stuff that I've posted online, that it's just, the fire is literally hopping from yard to yard. It's torching, going up into these trees. It's getting on the roofs. It's sending major ember casts all over this whole neighborhood. And, I mean, it's just mass destruction here right now. We have several homes on fire. They're trying to do their best to, structure protection on as many as they can. And this is just really, really devastating and sad to see.
Yeah, it really is heartbreaking to see. Brandy, you said you're talking to residents as well. What have they been saying to you? Because again, we've talked about it. This area has seen fires in the past. What have you been talking about with the specifically to this fire, which has been called the Edge Hill fire?
There has been quite a few residents that have not wanted to evacuate. A lot of them are used to having fires on this mountain. And normally, it's not like this. They get them out very quickly. So a lot of people have been reluctant to leave, and they're trying to protect their homes. But in a situation like this, when, home after home is catching fire, and you have to leave. So I'm advising residents to get out. Don't stay behind. There's people that are trying to grab as many things as they can, save their animals, and we're all just kind of, trying to help. I burned my hand earlier. I'm also, it's all hands on deck out here. I am a photographer, but I'm going to ultimately do what I can at the same time. So definitely trying to put out little spot fires here and there in the yards.
That must be really disheartening, though, when you see these people not leaving, because I have been in an evacuation zone before with this back in the day, and telling us to be ready to stand by and leave and have your car packed, and you have to heed that warning. You don't have a lot of time, and you got to just figure out what you want to take and get in your car and leave. But it's especially with these windy, narrow roads and a one-way out, one-way up. Some of these hillsides that we're looking at right now, there we're watching some CAL FIRE water drops, and pretty successful there, right on it. But you can see it doesn't make that much difference each drop, because of that fire is so strong and so large compared to the water drop.
And also, Brandy, what are some of the images that you have been taking? We obviously know of fires, but what are you seeing that if you are, you're a fire photojournalist, so every fire sort of is unique to its own situation. Has there been anything sort of surprising to you, or that you've been seeing a lot of?
This year, I think, we've had a lot of rain. We have a lot of growth on the vegetation. We've been very, very hot. We've had extended heat waves. Everything just, dried out very, very quickly. And a lot of our mountains and our hillsides and the foothills, they have really thick brush. And, not in most cases, these firefighters put fires out very quickly. But when you have a little bit of wind, even 5, 10, 15 miles an hour, it's significant, and it really pushes and fuels the fire, and it creates it and makes it stronger. And, we talk about defensible space. If you live in an area that is prone to fires, do the best you can. Ask for help if you don't have any, and, really keep kind of some great defensible space around your house. But, there are people here that do have defensible space, and it's not helping. When we have such large trees, and this is a beautiful community, and it's really sad to see what's happening right now, but it's just the wind, the ember cast, it just blows and it keeps going, and it's basically just hitting one house and going to the next. Mm-hmm.
We've seen quite a few cars. We even saw an RV go up in flames, which that poses its own problem.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually on that street. I'm on Vista right now, where the RV did burn down, and initially it didn't, but the house across the street that was lost, the fire was so intense coming off that house, it kind of burned everything that was in its path, and that RV was right across the street from it.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, you really feel for these people. I'm sure you've spoken to some of these people who've lost their homes in the past, and perhaps when you do your photography, and it must be such a sick feeling to know that all the things you think about that you didn't pack up in your car, and you have to leave your home, and all the precious memories in it at times.
Yeah, that's exactly why we tell people, it's very important to get out as quickly as you can, because a lot of these residents did not have a lot of time. They had enough time to maybe grab their animals and their loved ones, and that was it. And so, when we tell people that have time, that are given time to pack their stuff, pack quickly and get the heck out of there, because some people don't even get that opportunity.
Yeah, we know, and as we've covered in fires before, a lot of people who truly do rely on certain medications and things that are imperative to their health, they do have these go bags. They have things set up in their cars. I'm sure several people here just have a small amount of things, even if it's just for 24 to 48 hours, so then they can get their prescriptions filled.
We want to point out on the right-hand side, this is Brandy Carlos's video. That Brandy's on the phone with us, and Brandy, we're showing your video, and boy, you do sure get close right up. What is your handle, just so people can find you and follow you?
Fire Photo Girl.
Fire Photo Girl. Okay. Wow. I'm watching your video right now, and it's just incredible that you are that close. That must be a little scary sometimes.
It is, absolutely, and the heat it's not good. It's very hot. I had to take a break several times, just trying to catch my breath because it's really hard. It's really hard on the body. It's hard on everybody out here trying to fight these fires. I've seen firefighters come running out of the back of a house that, took a lot of heat, and you have to kind of step away for a second and, catch your breath and then go back in.
Yeah.
I have to ask you, how does one become a fire photo girl? I'm just curious, like, how did that start?
It's a long story, but yeah, it started when I was young. I was always into photography. I had a passion for first responders, emergency type photography, and then it evolved into, going to work for a fire department, and then, media and photos and videos was just my passion. So I pursued that after fire department life, and now I work for RMG News also as well, so I do a lot of news coverage.
Okay.
And I cover all over California, fire season. And like we all know, fire season can be every single month. I've had years where I've gone to fires, from January to up until Christmas Day.
Yeah,
so
unfortunately, that is the case.
This is probably going to be a bad year. I know every year they say it's going to be a bad year, but, we've had a lot of rain. We had relatively mild fire seasons the last 2 years, so I think this is just kind of the warm-up to, what we could experience later in the next couple of months, because we don't even have Santa Anas right now.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
And that's what I was going to talk to you about, Brandy. Anyone who covers fires, you are going to be very well versed in it. When you go out to cover these fires, for somebody like us, we're watching, and a lot of the viewers are watching this, but fires, they create their own weather within these firestorms. And it's really, can you describe what it's like sometimes when you go in and you're driving there and it's probably kind of calm around you, and then you get into sort of the eye of the storm because you're so close, you have such access, and obviously the firefighters certainly trust you. But tell us about what you've experienced when you get out, the winds and what have you.
Like you said, you never know. When I leave the house, I never know what I'm kind of getting into. When I first got here to the Edge Hill fire, you could see it burning down, coming down the hill into the neighborhoods. Kind of really didn't look like a whole lot. It looked like, okay, maybe they're getting a handle on it. And then out of nowhere, things can change dramatically. It started getting into the trees. It started getting windier. You're getting a lot of stuff that's burning here inside the homes, the vehicles, like the RV that you saw. All of that is really toxic. So just imagine being in kind of like a firestorm. You see flames everywhere. You've got the smoke. You can't breathe. You can't see. You have sweat dripping down your face. It's intense. It's a lot.
Wow. Well, Brandy Carlos, Fire Photo Girl, we really want to appreciate you spending time with us because it's been such an interesting perspective to hear it from you. And you stay safe out there. It's very dangerous what you're doing, and just stay safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely, Brandy. And you can see images from Air 7. Chris Christie, you're live on board. We see a massive fire. This fire is really devastating today.
Colleen, this is just a devastating sight here right along Ridgeline Drive. This entire neighborhood south of Ridgeline Drive now ordered to evacuate. Again, they are using Marshall Elementary School as the evacuation center. At this point, you can see there are several fire crews in this neighborhood and at least one CAL FIRE helicopter overhead making water drops over this residential neighborhood. This fire is surrounding at least a dozen separate residents, and you can see about a half a dozen of those have already been lost. Some very thick black smoke coming from Circle Drive there. You can see one home fully engulfed, a separate home across the way there also fully engulfed, and then a third home now with active flames coming through the roof of that house. So we have 3 active fires at the very least. There's also an RV that has caught on fire down there, and always remember, behind that black smoke is more property that is on fire. We're coming around the south side now, and I want to give you a little bit of a little help if you're familiar with this area in terms of the area affected. We're talking about the neighborhood south of Ridgeline Drive, north of Beverly Drive, and the group of homes that you see are on fire here are encompassing El Camino Road, Vista Drive, Circle Road, and Hillhurst Drive. These are the dozen or so homes that are in an imminent threat right now. You can see more homes in the way of this fire if this continues the way it is. Again, there are limited resources in this neighborhood right now, plenty more on the way. It's going to take some time to really get effective structure protection in place here. There are some crews already on the scene, but you can see here just a little too late for some of the homes here in the Shandon Hills section of San Bernardino. This is Shandon Hills on the east side of a giant hill that basically has a tendency to create its own wind and weather, if you will, as Brandy was mentioning. Even though it's not a very windy day, the breeze can behave very differently when it bounces up against that terrain there, and you can see that entire hillside has gone up in flames. It's all charred up there as those flames race towards Canyon Terrace Drive at the top of that plateau, and hopefully those will be man-made fire breaks that halt the progress, at least going westward, of this fire. But right now, all eyes are on those homes further east here, as we've counted at least 3 or 4 homes now up in flames, and again, a couple of others that have already burnt to the ground, guys.
That are just so tough to see. They're tough to watch. We do see that firefight taking place. Chris, we know we talked earlier, 200 firefighters are trying to battle this fire. At least we see the helicopters coming, trying to make really good progress. They are doing a good job, but boy, this is a really intense, a hard firefight for these firefighters.
A little pedal turn. We just lost icon.
Okay. And Chris? All right.
All right. Well, again, you're looking at live images right now happening in San Bernardino County. And for those of you just joining us, I'm Colleen Sullivan in for David Ono.
And I'm Ellen Leyva. So we're going to recap the latest on this brush fire that's burning your homes in San Bernardino. The so-called Edge Hill fire first started about 2:30 this afternoon on Beverly Drive in the Little Mountain community, a community that has seen fires before. At least 200 firefighters, as Colleen just mentioned, they're fighting the flames right now from the ground and in the air.
And evacuations, they are underway to dozens of homes, including people living near Ridgeline Drive and Edge Hill Road. An evacuation center has been established at Marshall Elementary. That is located on 3288 North G Street. And we're talking about this fire. We've been following this all afternoon. We know this started around 2:30, but boy, it has devoured some very large properties. It's also burned RVs and cars, and people did not get a lot of advance notice to get out and evacuate. So a lot of people trying to get just what they can and make it to safety.
Right, and we've had Chris Christie up in Air 7 who's been following it from the sky, and it seems like we keep seeing more homes go up in flames, Chris. We just saw a home that looked just like another one that was burning.
Yeah, but by our count up here, we've counted at least 5 or 6 so far. Right now, the focus is these 2 right here. Actually, there's three homes in this shot right here. You have that large home near the bottom of your screen, right along Vista Drive. Right across the street is a second house that has almost burnt to the ground already, and then just to the north of that, near Hillhurst Drive, is a separate large home with, you could see, very heavy flames shooting through the roof of that home. And what you don't see in this shot are fire crews anywhere near that block. They just can't get through it. There's too much fire and too much smoke to get up Vista Drive or to get up Hillhurst Drive. They're having to station a block or 2 away in either direction to even begin to pull out their hand lines and at least protect the homes that are in the wake of this fire. But right now, we're seeing 3 homes at least that are on fire, a separate 2 or 3 that have already burnt to the ground here, but the potential here, unfortunately, is concerning. You can see homes right there next to that house that's on fire. Just to the left of it is a single-family residence, by my estimation there, that is also vulnerable here. There's definitely some potential for exposure, as you can see that thick black plume of smoke blowing from west to east. That is air that's bouncing off that hillside, creating its own little wind swirl, and then blowing the smoke towards the north and towards the west. So that's very, very thick black smoke that's enveloping this entire neighborhood here in the Shandon Hills area of San Bernardino. Again, there are a couple of hundred firefighters dedicated to this fire, but accessing this fire and getting into position where they can effectively fight that fire, that takes time, and this fire was spreading way too fast for some of these homes, and we can tell you there's at least 1 helicopter already making water drops along these streets. Here come a crew of firefighters stretching hand lines up Vista Drive to do what they can to try and tamp down and wet some of these exposures here. A little too late for that house on the left, but if they could prevent that fire from spreading, they will try at all costs to do so. You can see firefighters now on the roof of that neighboring building that looks like it might have been touched by flames earlier on, or perhaps it is an abandoned residence. I can't quite tell, but it does look like they are trying to get water on that house right there. So you can see structure protection now taking place along Vista Drive. If you are watching us from anywhere near this neighborhood, be advised that the areas south of Ridgeline and north of Edge Hill are under an evacuation order for very good reason, guys.
Oh my goodness. So, wow, we're going to show you the evacuation map right now in case you're just tuning in. The evacuation orders are, excuse me, I'm choking up for a second, calling you. I need to clear my throat and get some water.
Yeah, that's okay. Here's the evacuation map we were just talking about. You can see quite a large area of homeowners, residents being impacted by this. We know that people living on the south side of and south of Ridgeline Drive, all of those residents on the north side and north of Edge Hill Drive, west to and including Beverly Drive and east to Circle Road. We know this is really impacting all of you, but you see these canyons. You know it's an intricate area for these firefighters to get to. We know that Chris was saying on Vista Drive, he was located. We also know that we were talking to Brandy Carlos. She was also on Vista Street where the RV was burning. So again, people know this area. I know we've said this area is no stranger. Just looking at just a quick brief history of it, but we do know on June 9th, there was also a vegetation fire in this area. So residents, it's been less than 2 months and they saw a fire in this area that obviously probably rattled nerves. And now they're seeing this one as well. And this is really taking hold and just marching right through, taking houses right in its path, cars, RVs. And we know a lot of people didn't have a lot of time to evacuate, if at all. I mean, a lot of us are at work right now, and it would be hard for us to get to a location to evacuate. So our hearts go out to these homeowners.
And so many homes just right there west of this fire line. So trying to keep them safe and protected is a challenge, because it is uphill too from these fires, and we know that fire travels uphill quite often. And looking at these flames right now, that home that is directly next to it so far has been unscathed, but hopefully it'll remain so. But it's so close, and it's just so nerve-wracking to watch.
We saw this just at the top of the newscast. This house was one of those houses they were trying to protect, and it just went up. So it's there's no rhyme and reason to the way a fire is going to take some homes. And it's always these kind of weather conditions where it sort of dots around. All you need is that one ember to fly right underneath in an eave or right onto some of the brush, the defensible space that's not really doing enough work. But this area looks like it did. The homeowners look like they really did take defensible space into consideration, because you could see a lot of them are surrounded by sort of fire-resistant brush, except for these big, large, beautiful trees.
And that roof doesn't look like it's a tile roof. I wonder what type of roof that is, and that you see some of these tile roofs don't go up in flames quite as quickly, but that one is certainly going to be a total loss. It is flames coming out of every single window and out the top, and it's sad to see that.
It's always sad to see this, and it's great to see, you know, when we first got onto this, that the water dropping helicopters had not arrived. So to see them, we know the sort of resource they are to get to some of these fires, because Chris was saying we've been watching it. It's just so difficult to see for the firefighters to get really close. And look at that. That fire is so hot and producing so much smoke, and really toxic smoke as well. But again, we haven't been able to count how many fires, how many homes have gone up, or structures or outhouses, but we know that it is going to be devastating when the smoke clears. But Danny Ramiro, he's also been watching this and tracking the weather conditions. We know earlier we heard from San Bernardino County Fire, Danny, that on the ground of this fire, it's 109 degrees, and that's not including their fire gear.
Yeah, I mean, right on top of that. So we're going to get that real intense heat, especially right around the fire area. Along with that, that humidity is very, very low. So, man, that really makes it miserable there. We do see that the temperatures right in that 105, 110, 112 range, pretty much most of the peak heat here in the afternoon. Add into that, Colleen and Ellen, we're going to see the winds, again, 15, 20 mile per hour gusts are running through there. You're talking about those embers being blown. And that certainly is part of that weather picture. You get those embers going in those fires, and then it's a little bit of wind picks them up, moves into another place, and just sets off right away, because there, too, very, very dry conditions. We get the very, very hot conditions as well. And as a matter of fact, a couple of things are kind of affected by it. First, let's talk about the heat and the heat advisories and the warnings in effect right now. The areas in the pink, those are your heat warnings, excessive heat warnings. Those temperatures are in that 110 to 115 range and have been for the last few days. So that heat and the dryness really has been building up, certainly. The areas here in that kind of orange color, that's going to be your heat advisories. Those temperatures not quite as intense, but we're still talking about numbers in that 105, 110 range. So certainly that's some areas of concern. So in those spots, just the heat alone are concerns for children, for pets, for seniors. Check on them, of course. Stay indoors, find some AC as best you can, because it's just going to continue to be that hot. So the inland spots are where we're going to find most of the heat right now. So certainly triple digits in Burbank at the moment, 101. So there you can see the heat. You can see the low humidities as well. At the moment, the winds aren't a major factor in that part of Southern California. Now, mountain spots, that's you're going to really have concerns, because the temps are so warm for the mountain area. So nudging towards 90 right now up at Wrightwood. Sunny conditions there, 20%. Again, dry conditions in the mountain spots. So again, those areas, again, with that hill topography, you're going to see some concerns there for fire too. Now, different story. Down on the coast, the cool of the sea breeze. Look at this. We're knocking down like another 30 degrees, 73 at LAX right now. So cooler on the coast. Now, the air quality is another part to worry about, especially in that fire zone. You can see right there in the IE, you're just getting really bad air quality. The brown parts are the air quality that's considered unhealthful for sensitive people. The areas in the red indicates unhealthful air for everybody, and you can find a little spot of purple right here. That's unhealthful. That's very unhealthful air. That's right around that fire zone. So there again, that smoke is adding to that bad air quality. So the heat, the smoke, all a bad picture. And now we're looking at the heat with us for a little bit longer. There is a break coming right now. We see a couple things driving towards Southern California. Tropical moisture coming in, driven by the ridge of high pressure, kind of centered to our east. And you can see that clockwise motion around the high 1 pulls in that moisture from the south. So mountain spots, desert spots have chances of thunderstorms coming in. The heat and the humidity combining for that. But also, we'll see that the temperatures are going to rise, because that offshore flow continues for the inland areas. So numbers still hot again today and into tomorrow. The sea breeze still works on the coast. That's going to stay in place. But now we head towards midweek. We're going to see temps start to drop a little bit. We do get a break from the heat. I'll show it to you in the 7-day forecast here in just a bit. Overnight, the numbers are going to be very, very warm. We don't get much of what's called a recovery at nighttime. It doesn't get very cold. 74 for the overnight low and Ojai, 77 in Santa Clarita. So that means it starts there when the sun rises up the next day. So all those areas in the 70s are staying warm overnight. No real cooling. So you can expect tomorrow afternoon another hot day in Southern California. So there you go. 105 for San Bernardino, 114 for Palm Springs, triple digits, Riverside, Lake Elsinore, and Beaumont, upper 90s in Temecula. Now, knock off 20, 30 degrees, you head towards the coast, so a 97 in Temecula, 77 for Dana Point right now. We're showing 90s in Glendale and Pasadena, triple digits again in the high desert, Lancaster, Palmdale, 109, 105 in Apple Valley, but 77 for Redondo Beach. See the clouds hanging around there, 81 for Malibu, a warm beach day, but still a lot less than the 94 and in Ojai, and the 99 in Fillmore, and the triple digits showing up in Santa Clarita, Northridge for tomorrow. So now we look ahead of the accurate weather 70 forecast. Okay, there is relief coming. Tomorrow, not so much. Another hot day, 95 for the basin. Then we knock off 10 degrees. Temperatures just drop for a couple of days. We had a break. Here we go. Wednesday and Thursday, about where we should be, a little bit above average at 85 and 86, but back up for the weekend. Hot again, near 90, 89, 88 for the basin. So the heat is coming back. The break is coming, though. So tomorrow, Valley's Inland Empire, still a hot day, 106. And we'll see some areas in the IE getting up to around 109 or so. And then those temps drop down. We knock off a good 10, 13 degrees from that 106 on Tuesday to 93, 92 for some real relief Wednesday, Thursday. Really, you think about it. But here comes the weekend. Back up the numbers go, 97 to 100 to 99 for your Sunday afternoon high. Beaches, yeah, that's still going to be your spot of relief there. Temps nudging mid to upper 70s for the next few days. Mostly sunny skies after the morning clouds move out, so we stay in that range all the way through the 7 days. Now, the mountain spots, concerns here. We're just showing, of course, the dangers there in the mountain areas. The winds are a little stronger, and now thunderstorms staying in place all the way through. The concern for dry lightning in those mountain and desert areas because of just that lightning, the ignition, and then the winds we talked about kicking up. Temps are still warm, too. We're looking at 80s all the way through the rest of the week into the weekend. Finally, a little drop to 79 by next Monday. Now, the high desert, we're going to go hot again, 109, but dropping down a bit to 103 by Thursday into Friday. Palm Springs, well, that's still very hot, 116, 115, staying for hot temps through the rest of the week in towards the weekend. So we do bring the temps down a little bit, but still it's a desert. So 103, 106 going into a Friday into Saturday with thunderstorm chances in play all the way through there. No real break in temps again for the desert spots until we get to next Monday. But the thing working right now, Colleen and Ellen, is again, continued heat for another day or two, and then we get a bit of a break.
Okay, so one more day, Danny, that you're promising us that. Well, thank you. You know, we've been watching on the left-hand side of the screen the live pictures from Air 7, and tremendous water drops on behalf of CAL FIRE happening there on this house that is completely engulfed in flames, but they're certainly made at least 4 water drops in the last few minutes. And keep in mind, these firefighters are wearing like 45 pounds worth of gear with the helmet and the clothes and everything.
And then they're running around.
In the heat. And yeah, and they're exhausted and they're probably dehydrated. I can't even imagine the uncomfortable part of that firefight effort. But we're going to check back in with Chris Christie, who's up in Air 7. And Chris, you've been seeing these water drops as well.
Yeah, occasionally you'll see them come through the shot. CAL FIRE does have at least one helicopter dedicated, additional resources on the way out here as they try to get as much water on this neighborhood as possible. You can see that home that we've been watching for the last several minutes continuing to burn up. That thick black smoke indicative of lots of, obviously, a wooden structure with lots of furniture and everything else that's left to burn in there. All a complete loss at this point. There are several other homes in this immediate vicinity also going up in flames as we speak. Roughly speaking, we're talking about a half a dozen houses so far that have been lost, give or take 1 or 2. And you can see another one there right along Vista Drive. We've already seen firefighters make their way up Vista Drive to try and protect some of the surrounding homes and buildings. You can see that one right there with firefighters on the roof of the building doing whatever they can with those hand lines to try and tamp down these flames. But I got to tell you, they're going to be relying mostly on those helicopter water drops to really make progress in this neighborhood. You can see the fire climbing up this hillside here in Shandon Hills towards that home right there. If we widen out, you can see the hillside behind that house races up towards Ridge Hill Drive and Hillhurst Drive. Ridgeline Drive and Hillhurst Drive. That area on the left side of your screen has already burnt, and the good news here in this shot is that the fire has made its way all the way up that hill and has stopped right at Ridgeline Drive. They now have no active flames on Ridgeline Drive where they did just a couple of minutes ago near the top part of your screen. If you could zoom in there onto Ridgeline Drive, Brian, that group of homes right there, that's Ridgeline Drive right there. All of these homes are under an evacuation order, and it looks like right now the fire is stopping right there. You can see one hot spot coming up to the top of that hillside there. And right where it plateaus is where the fire basically stops. And that's good news. There are firefighters along that block to make sure that the fire doesn't jump the road. If it jumps the road, that would require a whole new set of evacuation orders. But you can see those firefighters right there engaged in structure protection along Shandon Hill Circle to protect the group of homes at the top of this hill. So So good news there for those folks at the top of the hill where fire was racing up towards that direction a few moments ago. It looks like all of the fire has stopped at the top of the hill. If we tilt back down, you can see that unfortunately it's a bit too late for the homes around Hillhurst Drive, Ridgeline Drive, El Camino Road, and north of Vista Drive. All of those homes right there are heavily impacted by this fire. We see 3 or 4 homes on fire. Another couple of homes have already burnt to the ground, unrecognizable at this point underneath all of that thick black smoke that is starting to blow through this entire section of San Bernardino. Here comes another firefighting helicopter to continue dropping those several tons of water, about a ton of water with each water drop here.
Wow, it'll certainly be great if they could save that home right next to this burning home that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, Chris,
Wow.
how many helicopters have you seen taking part in this firefight?
That helicopter that just flew through the shot, by my count, is the second helicopter that has dropped water here. So there is at least one CAL FIRE helicopter. I didn't catch the agency there, but perhaps also dispatched by CAL FIRE, presumably, unless it was a San Bernardino chopper. I just couldn't see the side of it. In any event, CAL FIRE is basically in charge of this fire. They are the ones calling for mutual aid here. There was a fire truck from San Manuel. There were a couple of other nearby agencies that are contributing to the firefight here. Upwards of a couple of hundred firefighters from various jurisdictions out here trying to organize and fight this fire. To answer your question, I counted 2 helicopters. Very good reason to believe that there are likely more helicopters on the way out here to try and get these fires out. But again, the good news here is that geography appears to be helping. As the fire has run all the way uphill, it has come to a stop where that road begins, right along Hillhurst Drive and Ridgeline Drive. You can see no active flame at the top. All of the focus is at the bottom of the hill where those homes are in immediate danger, guys.
Wow, that is certainly good news for those homes up at the top of that ridge. And there were so many homes behind those homes, too, and saving an entire community practically. Incredible. Well, the water source must be pretty close by.
They have been dropping pretty quickly and pretty frequently, so I imagine there is one close by. I'm actually trying to look out the window to see if there's any indication rather of where they are getting that water from. Johnny, have you seen where they're picking up that water? It looks like, if you go ahead and pan over there, Brian, just for a second, looks like there's a baseball field down there, and they might have I'm trying to find that water source. It appears that they're getting water from behind these baseball fields out here. Look at that. There's a bucket. There's a
oh my goodness,
there's a
yeah. Source. They did say they
so
put in a drip
they're
source.
filling up that little pool there and actually getting water from that fire hydrant right there in the back of those baseball fields.
Incredible.
I've never seen it. When they said they were setting up a drip source, I didn't really know where or what that would look like. Now we see what that looks like. And
yeah.
It's incredible, though, Chris, because when you show how huge, when you really pull out and give us an idea of how isolated this area is, the fire is, it's a relief because you can see how many homes are actually located in this vicinity as well. So bravo to the firefighters. You did say a lot of mutual aid has been also helping. We know that Riverside County, CAL FIRE, Riverside City has also been helping. So, boy, this one really.
Look at that. That was a perfect water drop. That really did a good job there. Wow.
Yeah, good drop right there. There appears to be a structure down there. It looks like maybe a storage shed. It could be a house. I'm not entirely sure, but there is something right there at the bottom of that embankment that is on fire. Perhaps more than one structure, to be honest. And this is what I was talking about earlier when we saw all of that thick smoke. Sometimes it's difficult to see through the smoke and what's burning behind the smoke or underneath that cloud of smoke sometimes where there's already property damage underway and it's just impossible to see. You can see now several structures, including possibly some either back houses or storage sheds that are on fire in between these 2 larger homes that are on fire, and you can see them nailing that embankment right between those 2 houses there. So they're going to continue that heavy brush that has collected there in that little nook there behind Hillhurst and Vista Drive. A lot of thick, overgrown brush in that corner that's proving to be very stubborn. And you can see whatever structures and whatever the property, even vehicles that might be down there, they are going to be an entire loss. Altogether, just to reiterate, I count about a dozen homes in the immediate vicinity of this fire. The good news is that if they can get a handle on that, that patch of fire there, and the two larger homes that are on fire, this will start to take on a much more encouraging profile. In fact, you could already see that the thickest black smoke that was burning just a few minutes ago when we first arrived on scene is starting to take on a lighter color. You're able to see through the smoke, so it's a little bit thinner, it's a little bit lighter, and that tells you that there is less fuel fueling this fire. So it's a gradual burn here, but it is encouraging to see a little bit less smoke. Where there is less smoke, there is hopefully less fire.
Any encouraging news, you know, because we've been watching this for a full hour now, and it's nice to see some homes being saved.
And that looks like a San Bernardino County Sheriff's helicopter that is contributing there. So we've got one helicopter from CAL FIRE San Bernardino, a San Bernardino Sheriff ship, both using that makeshift pool on the baseball field just behind Shandon Hills. So they are lucky they have a nice position there with that fire hydrant very close by, a flat area where they can set up that pool, and it's safe for those helicopters to go back and forth. Right just a couple of football fields away from the active flames, you have a source, a water source that has been set up right in the outfield of these Little League baseball fields, and that is what is allowing them to bomb this fire one after another, and you can tell just in the last few minutes it has had a tremendous effect. 2 drops, 2 refills here, and we'll continue to see those drops. This one coming in with a Bambi bucket here as they continue to pound this fire to extinguish it as soon as possible. Hopefully, I would say within the next hour here, I expect this fire should be looking much, much better.
Chris, we certainly hope so. That would be wonderful news, especially, you know, if the winds pick up just a tiny bit. Any amount can make a big difference with those embers flying from tree to tree there. We've been watching it spread so quickly. Yeah,
thankfully, the wind is not a big factor here. It is where you have those little canyons and that little hillside. It's not a big mountain we're talking about. It's a moderate hill here that has a flat top, and you can see that there is enough geography there, enough terrain to produce a little bit of a breeze that bounces off of the hill to the left there back towards those homes. But overall, not a windy day. So, you know, the wind is not as much of a factor as the heat itself. By my, just going off of the temperature up, the thermometer, I should say, up here, we're looking at temperatures at about 104 degrees here in this area of San Bernardino. So extremely hot air, not a whole lot of wind, but just enough terrain and just enough heat to really keep this fire going.
This is Giovanna Latta filling in now for Colleen Sullivan. And to your point, we did hear, however, from Fire Photo Girl earlier yesterday, Brandy, earlier today, who was saying that the winds were light, 5 to 10 miles per hour winds, but that even light winds would carry embers, especially with all of the tree canopies surrounding those homes. So she was just commenting how quickly the flames were spreading.
Yeah, and that is exactly how this fire was able to get out of control before firefighters were able to arrive. You could tell that whatever started this fire, presumably it started along Edge Hill Drive there. That's normally how they name these fires. This is the Edge Hill fire, incidentally. So it started somewhere along Edge Hill and creeped up this embankment here. But as you mentioned, if there was any assistance from the breeze that bounces off this hillside, those embers were able to travel pretty quickly before help arrived, and that is why this group of homes here went up so fast. But now that there are the amount of resources that we see here, the house fires that we're keeping an eye on are surrounded by firefighters with hand lines. The houses that are under immediate threat have mostly already burned. There are a couple that are getting structure protection from the firefighters that have already made their way out here. You can see some residents also watching over their own property at the top of Hillhurst Drive. But behind these homes, there's not much more private property left to burn. Those embers, if they continue flying towards the west, are just going to hit already charred land right there along Hillhurst Drive and Ridgeline Drive. So that whole hillside has already burnt up. That allows firefighters to really focus at the bottom of the hill where those houses are burning and the top of the hill where those hot spots came very, very close to Ridgeline Drive, and thankfully there is enough structure protection at the top of the hill along Ridgeline Drive that those folks could, for now, breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. Nonetheless, they are under an evacuation order and are best to do so as firefighters continue this valiant work here. And again, they're using Marshall Elementary School as the evacuation center for all of the homes along Ridgeline Drive and there south of all points south of Ridgeline Drive down to Edge Hill. So from Edge Hill to Ridgeline is where this evacuation area is.
Okay, Chris Christie, stand by. Thank you for that. We will get back to you momentarily as we approach the top of the hour here at 5 o'clock. We're going to kind of reset things as we continue to follow this story here in San Bernardino. I'm Jory Rand.
And I'm Giovanna Latta. Again, we continue to follow this breaking news here at 5 p.m. Homes destroyed, several of them, others damaged. Evacuations are in place. A wildfire burning in the Inland Empire is ripping through a neighborhood. It is very, very difficult to watch this. We've seen 5, 6, 7 homes completely destroyed. We saw an RV overtaken by flames as well. There are still some homes fighting flames. Firefighters having a very difficult time out there. It is between 105 and 110 degrees out there, and some light winds which aren't helping.
Yeah, we want to see more of those firefighters. That's a problem that so many of these homes have gone up and they haven't been able to access this. This is the Edge Hill fire burning in the Shandon Hills neighborhood of San Bernardino. This is a sad day in this area. It looks like at least a half a dozen homes have burned as we watch another water drop over this fire on one of those homes that looks like it is a complete loss. Now trying to put out the flames, extinguish this home so it does not spread to nearby homes. You can see the side by side. One home completely lost. The next looks completely untouched. This is a difficult fight for firefighters. We see a hand line there, but that has been the exception. We have not seen a lot of firefighters on the ground, and it took a long time for airdrops to begin. Let's get right back to Chris Christie overhead in Air 7, who's been covering this fire for quite some time now. Chris, what are you seeing?
That's right, Jory. 200 firefighters at least dedicated to this fire from across San Bernardino and Riverside counties. There are now 3 helicopters making repeated water drops along Vista Drive, where a bulk of the fire activity is at this point. Between Vista Drive and Hillhurst Drive, there are several active house fires, and you can see here comes the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department with another water drop here momentarily. You can see those hand lines just behind that water drop. That is in an effort to save some of the neighbors along Hillhurst Drive and Circle Drive. This is all in the Shandon Hills area of San Bernardino, where a very aggressive firefight is underway. However, it took a little bit of precious time, and it was a little too late for what we estimate about a half a dozen homes in this area that have gone up in flames. There are about a total of maybe 12 to 15 homes in the immediate vicinity of the active flames here that are under threat. Basically the home south of Ridgeline Drive. Now, for a time, this fire was racing up the hillside here behind Hillhurst Drive and was really threatening all of the homes along Ridgeline Drive. However, Ridgeline now appears to be in a much better position. That is the neighborhood near the top of your screen here, where we now see very little fire activity, just that one hot spot coming from the edge of the road there. That's Ridgeline Drive. It ends with a little dead-end cul-de-sac there, and there are large homes on the north side of Ridgeline Drive that have been saved by both the road and the plateau at the top of this large hillside. So again, all of the focus now taking place further down as we tilt back down towards those 2 or 3 active house fires. They are doing their best to basically protect the neighboring structures, but it's a little bit too late rather, for those homes right there. There's one large home. We see another one on the other side near the top of the hill, and several other smaller homes there along Vista Drive that have gone up in flames, guys.
Well, you can really see the difference. The fire break at the top of the hill, which you think would be at most risk, they did a really good job of clearance. How you have that fire break as it crests the hill. There's the plateau with looks like virtually no brush, and the home set on the backside of that road. So when the flames come up, they are saved. And then the difference down the hill, Giovanna, when you see those homes in pockets close together, a lot of brush and growth all around them, and this is the result of that design.
Yes, closer together for sure, but we were hearing that the brush clearance around a lot of these homes was really good. They had done their jobs to protect their homes, but again, we were hearing this fire spread very quickly. A fast-moving fire. It started about 2:30. It quickly climbed up the hill. I believe on, let's see, I think it was, I'm looking at my notes here, Ridgeline, no, sorry. This all started in dry brush. There was a quick run up the hill off of Beverly Drive.
Right, and then Vista Circle Hillhurst is where these homes are now clustered.
Right, and mandatory evacuations in place. There is an evacuation center for residents. It's Marshall Elementary at 3288 North G Street.
Which is really 2 blocks from where these homes are burning. This is Marshall Elementary is a quarter of a mile, if that, down from where these homes have burned. So those evacuating can basically watch and in real time see if their homes make it through this fire.
Right. And we did hear from someone who was on the ground. Again, I'm referring to Brandy. She goes by Fire Photo Girl, and she was saying how people were slow to leave. They were getting the evacuation orders, but they really wanted to stay. They've dealt with fires in the past, but they wanted to stay and try to fight this one out. I think we have Rob McMillan on the ground with more to add to this.
Hopefully he's been able to have a little access to this neighborhood because it took a long time for firefighters to get there. We were watching this for some time as homes burned, Rob.
That's right. We've watched a number of fires burn here in the Little Mountain area over the years. We've gone into the backyard of a home here. Homeowner allowed us back here. You can see where this person here is using a garden hose to help kind of water things down, because immediately behind the property up the hill, you can see where there are firefighters up there, and it's tough to tell here because, again, there's so much brush in this area. Clearing all of this brush is difficult for many of the homeowners in this area, but up the hill there is one of the homes that's burning. We believe it's on Vista Drive up there. We've been watching as that home has burned, and obviously for the property owners here on this street, there is a lot of concern about what is happening here, because the winds, they're not gusting too badly, but they're very erratic in this area. And as you guys have been seeing from overhead, from the helicopter, as well as from what we've seen on the ground, and this has been an issue anytime we come to a fire in the Little Mountain area, just getting in and around the area here is difficult, because not only are the roads tight, but there's lots of growth. And obviously right now everyone's outside of their homes. A lot of people watering stuff down like you see here in the backyard. Why don't you walk with me? Let's go back out front and I'll show you what we were dealing with over there. Again, this fire burning in the Little Mountain community. You can see a firefighter here trying to make access. They've been able to drag hose line up there, another firefighter up top, but this gives you a really good idea of some of the difficulty they're having as far as access goes, because if they can't get there on the if they can't get there via street, they have to climb through many of these backyards. You can see you have a 7 or 8 foot tall wall there that someone had to go around, climb up, and get the hose line up there. And this is just trying to get structure protection into place. There's another water dropping helicopter to come in and make a drop. But watch what this firefighter is doing up here as he's watering down the side of the hill, and you can see that home behind him. Look at all that brush around the home there. That makes it very difficult for firefighters to get into this area to try to defend these structures. That's definitely going to be a problem as they move forward. Now, as we were driving to the scene here, there wasn't a whole lot of smoke being put up. I think part of that was because as the winds are gusty, some of those smoke bands, if you will, were laying down. As I talk, Dave, let's head out to the front yard here, and I'll show our viewers kind of what it looks like here. We're walking down the driveway, and this is Edge Hill Road right out here, one of the main streets, and this might give you a better idea as far as the kind of access issues that the fire department, as well as the sheriff's department and police department, are having, because you've got these, and this is one of the wider roads, if you believe it or not, in this community. You've got these roads here where it's very difficult to get around. You have people in their front yards walking around, and it's difficult for the fire department to get into place. It's also difficult for us to see how the fire is doing. From this vantage point here, if you walk forward a little bit, Dave, you can see where that structure on the ground is burning, that home that we were talking about, this home that we were in the backyard of right here, directly below the home above. As you've been watching from the helicopter all afternoon, we believe at least 3 homes, I think by our count, have burned, many more threatened. Back to you guys for now.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Rob McMillan, live on the ground there for the Edge Hill fire. And we do have a map we want to show you so you get a better understanding of the area of the Edge Hill fire. If we can show you that, there it is.
All right, I think we're going to go maybe try to talk.
All right, that was Rob. Okay, so again, reiterating that the fire started around 2:30 on the 3300 block of Beverly Drive. You see Beverly Drive there. You see Ridgeline where the fire is. And the evacuation's underway right now is for all residents on the south side of and south of Ridgeline Drive. Also those living on the north side rather, and north of Edge Hill Drive, west to and including Beverly Drive and east to Circle Road.
Right, so this is that cluster of where those homes we have seen. That's Vista, that's Edge Hill, and that's, I think, Hillhurst. Beverly Drive, I believe, is where the ignition point was.
Yes.
Marshall Elementary is the evacuation center. If you have been forced, if you live in that area, again, south of Ridgeline, north of Edge Hill, and east to Circle Road. You can go to Marshall Elementary, which is not far. These residents know where this is here in the Shandon Hills community in San Bernardino County. Just a devastating day for this community. Several families will be returning to this area at some point and find their homes are no longer there, and the firefighters are working right now to make sure that that list does not grow tonight.
And this fire moved so quickly, people didn't have enough time to gather their things and run. So we have on the phone with us, joining us now is Eric Sherwin with the San Bernardino County Fire Department Public Information Officer. Thank you for talking with us. Earlier, there were no water dropping helicopters, but now we have 3. Has that significantly helped the firefight?
Anytime that we can put large volumes of water onto the fire to knock the heat out such that the firefighters on the ground can get in there and do work, it's going to be an advantage.
Yeah, can we talk about what took, there was some delay. We were watching this fire burn for some time. Was there a delay in getting firefighters there, both, I guess, on the ground and getting some water dropping helicopters on this fire?
I would have to look at our notes right now, but I can tell you firefighters on the ground were here within minutes of the original dispatch.
Yeah.
San Bernardino County Fire, unlike some of our larger agencies here in the region, we do not have our own aircraft, our own fleet of aircraft. So we get on scene and have to place that request. And then that order gets filled for an aircraft, just like it would be for an additional engine company or hand crew.
Sure.
And then once those assets get here, something that's unique about Little Mountain is that we don't have a water source that's as close as we would like. So to that point, we do set up portable tanks. And if you look out to the west side of this incident out in Blair Park, you can see we have one of those 3,000-gallon flex pools that's attached to a hydrant. And that's what those helicopters have been drafting from to support these water drops.
Yeah. And earlier, when you were talking to us, you mentioned that the Little Mountain community has dealt with fires in the past. This is not a new thing, but this one moved particularly fast. Can you talk about the conditions out there that created this situation?
And that just, no, that speaks to the season that we've been seeing all throughout the Southland since late spring with our entrance into summer, with these fuels being critically dry on the tail of a robust rainy season. So we had a very mature grass crop that was able to grow, dry out, and cure. And now when we do get these fires with these triple-digit temperatures, they burn unbelievably quickly.
And we're just kind of panning from our helicopter over this fire of the several homes that were lost. And we think about the families that have lost their homes. But I want to ask you about the firefighters on this fight. Right now, I'm sure they are in it. The adrenaline is high. This is their job. They do this a lot. But when you are in a fire and, you know, your job is to prevent these homes from going. So when this is done and the exhaustion sets in, what are these guys and men and women on the front lines going to deal with tonight? When it's all said and done and homes have been lost, what toll does that take on these firefighters on the front lines?
It's frustrating, and you hit the nail right on the head. This is what we do. This is what we got in the business to do, is to protect people and protect their property. When the fire is burning to a degree such that no matter what we put in front of it, the fire is going to take a home, that's a hard one for us to hit. But we change our tactics, and our strategy becomes protect as many homes as possible.
Okay. And then what are your thoughts on the folks in this community who we understand were slow to leave when those evacuation orders were announced?
It's a combination, like we noticed, and starting to talk to some of the engine companies assigned here. As they came up, there were already people leaving the area because they know the potential within this community. Mm-hmm. Other people are, you know, to ask somebody to leave their home and know that the fire may take it, some people can't wrap their heads around that. But it changes the tactics of firefighters, where we're looking at fighting the fire and protecting homes. When we have people that stay at their homes, we have to adapt our strategies. We can't focus on the fire because our priority is always going to be life safety. So we might have a different strategy coming into a community where we know people are choosing not to heed the evacuation.
I hope people think about that when they choose to stay, because all of a sudden you have firefighters who would be trying to prevent the fire, and all of a sudden they have to worry about people who are in these homes, and that kind of diverts some of the attention away. I think this could be a cautionary tale of what you have to do before the fire is ignited. Can we talk about brush clearance and what people can do to try and prevent some of this catastrophic end result we're seeing here of what was a home and is now just a pile of burning ashes?
The best fire we fight is the fire that never stops. So prevention is one of our key messages to keep those fires from starting. But when fire does come into a community, if you have created that defensible space, that gives firefighters a place to work in managing and gives us a zone that we can work in to do our best to protect those homes from an advancing wildfire.
Yeah, a lot of these areas are small, compact areas with narrow roads. If there are cars parked on the roads, it makes it even more difficult. How troublesome is it to access a community like this with these small roads, narrow lanes, getting a truck up into these communities to be on the front lines, and you're dealing with the fire that's actively burning in your path?
Yes, the community of Little Mountain is very similar to our mountain communities that we have up in the San Bernardino National Forest, where we have these almost one-lane roads that go into and out of. To that point, we did have many residents that were already loading up, already at the very minimum moving their cars out of the neighborhood down off the hill. And we do have dozens of residents that are down out here by the command post that are watching the fight, but they have moved their vehicles out of there such that our fire apparatus can move with fewer restrictions up and down those streets.
At last count, we understood that there were 12 to 15 homes lost. Do you have an update on that?
Damage assessment for us plays a role later in our incident. Mm-hmm. Right now, our efforts are focused on creating a perimeter, bringing this fire under control, and protecting as many homes as possible.
Yeah,
Once we've been able to do that, then we'll get into the damage assessment portion of our incident and start coming out with hard numbers.
Okay. Let's talk about the wind being a factor. We heard a couple of things that the wind is not blowing. There aren't any major gusts, but it's still blowing enough to make this worse. Can you?
Yes, and this is the typical onshore breeze that we see that comes into the Inland Empire in the afternoons. It comes out of the west. It's a steady wind blowing today. It's blowing at about 8 to 10 miles an hour, but that is enough to move this fire through these dry grasses. And again, once we get structures going or any kind of building going, the heat release component from a structure is so much greater than a vegetation fire that the exposure to adjacent homes is that much greater.
Interesting, and they're doing great work. We see some of the homes that have been saved. Eric Sherwin from the San Bernardino County Fire Department, thank you once again for joining us. I'm sure we will try and check back in with you as this firefight continues. I know Air 7 is going to have to refuel in the next couple of moments, so let's get back to Chris Christie one more time before they have to leave this scene. Chris?
Yeah, some good news, Jory. It looks like as the smoke begins to dissipate, the firefight is now slowly transitioning into the mop-up phase here. We've got at least 2 houses that are still on fire. They are burning themselves out, but they are also being fought by the firefighters who have now made their way down each of these little cul-de-sacs, including Hillhurst and Vista Drive. They now have water on all of these fires. These structure fires are basically the only thing burning at this point. Fortunately, all of the brush that has been on fire is pretty well tamped down. Now, this fire is still 0% contained, but in terms of actual active fire, we're looking at mainly these 2 or 3 structures that have now burnt to the ground. And now that we can see through that white smoke, we're getting a better picture of how many homes have been impacted. By our count up here, we see a total of 5 structures, 5 houses, plus 1 RV that have gone up in flames. That's at least from our vantage point. We've counted 5 homes and 1 RV that have burned to the ground, and for now it looks like there is plenty of firefighting going on to save all of the rest of the neighbors here who have been evacuated. Really quick, want to widen out before we leave the scene here and show you just how close that evacuation center is. As you mentioned, Jory, Marshall Elementary School, literally 2 or 3 blocks away from where that fire is taking place. Right there, that is Marshall Elementary. We can see San Bernardino Sheriff on the scene down there, ready to welcome evacuees. We have not noticed anybody coming in or out of the school yet. We haven't watched constantly, but that school right there on the right side of your screen, that is the evacuation center, just a couple of blocks from the smoke you see coming up on the top left part of your screen. That's Vista Drive right there, north of Edge Hill Road, which is where this fire appears to have started, and everything south of Ridgeline, north of Edge Hill, is under a mandatory evacuation order as firefighters continue to get this fire under control. Basically, again, dealing with 2 separate structure fires at this point. Guys,
Okay.
back to you.
Chris Christie, thank you so much, and we'll have much more right after this break.